I saw it all. A vision so vivid, so real, it shattered everything I thought I knew. In the trance, I was shown what they didn't want us to see. The music, the melodies we've cherished, the beats that move us. They are not just sound, they are keys. Keys that unlock doors to something darker than we ever imagined. I heard it, the sound of chains, the weight of 1,000 souls trapped, bound by the very rhythm that once set them free. And then in the midst of it all, he appeared, the being I had heard of, the one who offers the truth we can't handle. And he spoke. His words cut through the noise like a sword through the veil of illusion. And what he said is something I will never forget. The moment when the veil was lifted is the moment I want to share with you. The truth that was revealed is nothing short of mind-bending. Are you ready to hear the truth? Or will you stay in the dark? The choice is yours. But once you hear it, you can't unhear it.
Welcome, dear viewers. Today, we're about to embark on a journey so profound, it will change everything you thought you knew. The revelation you're about to hear comes from a place so deep, so spiritual, that it transcends the boundaries of what we understand. This isn't just another tale. It's a revelation, a truth that has the power to set you free or bind you forever. Before we proceed, I ask you, are you ready to open your eyes? If so, hit that like button. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and share this video with those you know need to hear this. Let's not keep this truth hidden any longer.
My name is Awif, and I live in the heart of Ireland, surrounded by the rolling hills and quiet fields that have always been home to me. I work as a nurse, always busy, always running from one thing to the next. But the day I fell into that trance, everything changed. It was a regular evening. I was at home, alone, when the weight of the day's work seemed too much to bear. The world felt heavy, the air thick, and I had this nagging sensation that something was wrong, something was off, though I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The house felt still. Too still. I sat on my old leather chair by the window, staring out the twilight sky, and I turned on the radio. The music played softly in the background, but it wasn't just any music. No, it was a song I had heard 1,000 times before. A catchy tune, familiar, even comforting. But as the notes wrapped around me, something strange happened. The world began to shift. It was as if my mind, my very soul, was being pulled into a place I couldn't control. One moment I was sitting in my chair, and the next, everything around me seemed to melt away. I was no longer in my living room, no longer in Ireland. I was somewhere else entirely. I couldn't see where I was, but I could feel it. The silence in the air, the stillness in my chest, the music. The song was no longer just a song. It felt like it was alive, like it had a voice of its own, whispering directly into my soul. And then I heard it. The words, the lyrics, that I had once sung along to carelessly, now felt like sharp arrows. Each phrase struck deeper than the last, as if they were calling me out, exposing my every weakness, every part of me that I hadn't even known existed. The music didn't just speak, it commanded. It pulled at me, drawing me into something I wasn't prepared for. And in that moment, in that trance, I understood what I had never realized before. The music, the songs we listen to, they carry a weight we can't always see. It isn't just entertainment. It isn't just background noise. It's an invisible force, one that influences us in ways we don't understand. I felt the tension in my chest grow. The light in the room seemed to dim as the music's power grew stronger. And just when I thought I might lose myself completely, I saw him. Jesus. His presence flooded the room, or at least that's what it felt like. He wasn't physically there, but his spirit was. His eyes, filled with sadness, yet overflowing with mercy, met mine. In that instant, I knew that I had been living in the shadows, unknowingly allowing these songs, these secular melodies, to steer my heart away from him, to harden it. The trance showed me something more than just the power of music. It showed me the cost, the true cost of allowing these songs into my life. It was like waking up from a long, deep sleep, only to realize I had been walking in the wrong direction all along. And then in that sacred moment, I understood. These songs, these catchy tunes we dance to, these lyrics we recite without thought, they hold us captive. They lead us down paths we never intended to walk. They pull us away from the truth, away from peace, away from Jesus. I don't know how long I was in that state. how long I was lost in that space between the physical world and something much deeper. But when I came back to myself, the silence was overwhelming, and with it, a single thought echoed through my mind. I could never go back to the way things were before. This trance, this experience, wasn't just a dream or a strange occurrence. It was a warning, a wake-up call, the kind that shakes you to your core and demands you listen. We've all been living with these influences, unaware of their true power. But now the truth is clear. In the music, we hear messages of the world, but what about the messages of the soul? What about the ones that lead us to God, to light, to truth? I can't ignore this, and I hope you won't either. What I saw, what I felt, isn't something I can forget, and neither should you. I did not step into it willingly. I was pulled. It began as a whisper in my bones, a pressure behind my eyes, as if something ancient had taken notice of me. I was in my home, the same place I had spent years, familiar walls, steady routines. And yet, the air shifted. I remember clutching the edge of the table, my breath growing shallow, my mind stretching thin. A coldness that did not belong to the room slithered up my spine. Then, I was falling. Not down, but away. Away from the weight of my body, away from time itself. The world around me melted into something vast, something without walls or limits. My limbs were no longer my own. My breath stolen. I was standing in a place that had no name. The sky, if it could be called that, was deep, hollow black, with no sun, no stars, no mercy. The ground beneath me pulsed as if alive, shifting like wet stone, breathing beneath my feet. I turned, and in every direction there was nothing. And yet, I was not alone. They were watching, not with eyes, but with something worse. A presence that pressed against my skull, peeling back the layers of thought as though I was nothing more than a page to be read. Their gaze burned, not with warmth, but with the weight of knowing. A sound rose, slow and deliberate. A voice, but not a voice. Words scraped against the inside of my head, forcing themselves into my understanding. You were not meant to see. I wanted to run. My body did not obey. My soul, if that was even what remained of me, was held in place, suspended in something older than fear. Then the vision came. It was not shown to me. It was carved into me. The sky above split open, and through that gaping wound, I saw them. Not creatures, not gods, something worse. They loomed, formless and yet more real than anything I had ever known. Their presence turned the air thick, pressing against my ribs, filling my throat with something heavy, something wrong. I understood nothing, but I felt it. The weight of an ending, a reckoning that had no kindness, no hesitation. The world I knew, our world, was fragile, stretched thin against something vast and merciless, and the veil that kept us from it was already tearing. The force holding me shattered. I fell back, screaming, though no sound left my lips. When I woke, my skin was slick with sweat, my heart hammering like a war drum. The room was unchanged. The walls still stood. And yet I knew, deep in the marrow of my being, that I had left something behind. Or worse, something had followed me back. I was not meant to see, but I did, and so will you. I did not expect the second vision. I thought the first had broken me enough, but the truth does not come gently. It tears through what we believe, leaving nothing untouched. It started with a sound, a familiar tune. Soft at first, barely more than a whisper in my mind, but it grew. I knew the melody, I had sung along to it countless times. It was harmless, wasn't it? Just a song. Then, the air around me shifted. The space I stood in stretched and darkened, like ink spilling across the sky. The melody was no longer music, it was something else, something alive. Shapes moved in the darkness, shadows that weren't shadows. They twisted and curled, drawn to the sound. I felt them watching, their presence thick with something heavy and wrong. The voice sang on, sweet, hypnotic, but behind it, beneath every note, something whispered. Words I had never noticed before, words hidden in plain sight. I listened, and I understood. Music is not neutral. Every sound carries something within it, a seed, a force, a purpose. Some songs are like open doors, letting things in that have no right to enter. The notes wrapped around my mind, pulling, pressing, filling the air with unseen hands that reached for my soul. I tried to turn away, but the sound was inside me now. It had been there for years. I had welcomed it, played it, sung it, without knowing what it carried. And now, I could feel them, the ones who had been waiting. They do not need permission. Only a door left open. The darkness thickened and I saw them fully. Their faces were not faces. Their mouths did not move, yet I heard them laugh. A cold, knowing sound. "You gave yourself to us," they whispered. "We did not have to take you. You sang our words. You called us." My heart pounded. This was not fear. This was truth. The weight of what I had done crushed me. How many times had I played their anthems? How often had I filled my home, my mind, my soul with words that were never meant to be harmless? The laughter faded, but their presence did not. They were patient. They had always been patient. And then I woke. The music was gone. But the silence that followed was heavier than the sound had ever been. I knew now what I had allowed. What so many allow. Not every song is a song. Some are chains. And once they are wrapped around you, the ones who forged them will never let go. I did not know what to expect. I had heard of Jesus, read of him, and even spoke his name without truly understanding what it meant. But in that moment, in that very place of darkness, I found myself face to face with something far more real than I could ever have imagined. The air was thick, suffocating with the weight of all that had passed. I could still feel the shadows around me, whispering and clawing at the edges of my soul. It was then, when the night seemed too heavy to bear, that I saw him. At first, it was only a faint light, just a glow like the distant shimmer of stars, but it grew, slowly, steadily, until the light was so bright it pierced through the darkness with such force that I thought I might be blinded. But I wasn't. The light didn't burn. It embraced. It pulled me closer, as if it knew my every fear, my every regret. And there he stood, Jesus. But he was not the man I had seen in paintings or read about in stories. No, he was more than that. He was something greater, something alive, timeless, and full of power. His presence filled the space, not just with light, but with peace. I had never known peace like this before. It was a peace that went deeper than the surface, a peace that seemed to touch every broken part of me. He spoke. His voice was calm, like the sound of the wind before a storm, yet it carried weight that pressed upon my heart. He said nothing of my past, of my wrongs, of my failures. He simply looked at me with eyes full of love, eyes that saw me, not as I had seen myself, but as I truly was. "You are not what they said you were," he said, his voice echoing deep in my chest. "You are not your mistakes. You are not the sum of your failures." In that moment, I felt something I had never felt before, a wave of relief. As if the chains I had worn for years, the chains of guilt, shame, and fear were slowly being undone. I could feel them break away, one by one. And in their place, something began to grow. Hope. I was standing in the presence of the Almighty, my heart racing, my mind heavy with the weight of my past. But this time, something was different. This wasn't just another dream, another fleeting moment. No, this was real, and I knew it. The room around me, the air, everything seemed to tremble as if the very heavens were drawing near. Jesus looked at me with eyes full of love and sorrow. Love for me, sorrow for what I had become. His voice, calm yet piercing, cut through the noise of my thoughts like a sword. And then, he spoke. "Do you hear it?" His words hung in the air, thick with the gravity of his meaning. "The music you listen to, the words that fill your ears, do you understand their power?" I trembled, unsure of what he meant. I had always loved music. The beats, the rhythm. It felt like a refuge, like something to hold on to when the world felt too harsh. But now, in his presence, I felt that the music was no longer just sound. It was something far more dangerous. He continued, his voice now firm, yet laced with compassion. "The songs you listen to, they are not just melodies. They carry the weight of the world, power of words that lead you away from me. The lyrics, they seep into your heart, into your very soul. Each verse you sing, each chorus you repeat, it shapes your mind and pulls you further from the truth." I tried to speak, to defend myself, but his gaze silenced me. "Do you feel the pull?" He asked gently, "How they distract you, how they stir your emotions and lead your thoughts astray? The enemy uses music to bind you, to fill your heart with confusion and your mind with lies. These songs, you think they're harmless, but they are weapons, meant to keep you trapped in the cycle of sin." My chest tightened as I realized the weight of his words. The music I had loved, the songs I had allowed to shape my mood and thoughts, had been a part of the chains that held me down. It wasn't just entertainment. It wasn't just a passing distraction. It was an invitation into darkness. But there is hope, he whispered, his voice softer now, like a balm to my wounded soul. I have come to set you free. I have come to break the chains, to lift the veil of deception. All you need to do is turn away from the noise of the world and listen to my voice. Let my words fill you. Let my truth be your guide. And in that moment, everything shifted. The weight of the songs, the pull of the world, suddenly felt light, like they had no hold on me anymore. I was free, and I knew I could never go back. And he smiled at me, the warmth of his gaze washing over me, and I felt a peace unlike anything I had ever known. The path to redemption is simple, child. You only need to listen. Let my words be the music that fills your heart. Let them be the rhythm of your life. As his presence began to fade, I knew that this was more than a moment. It was the beginning of a new life. A life where I would no longer be enslaved by the sounds of the world. A life where the voice of Jesus would be my guiding song. If you are feeling the pull of the world, if you hear the music and wonder if it's leading you to a place you don't want to be, take a moment. Hear his voice. Let him lead you away from the noise. Turn to him and let his words heal you. See it restore you, for only in him will you find the redemption you've been searching for. In the stillness of the moment, I was struck by a force more powerful than any darkness I had ever known. I had walked through the shadows, lost in a world of confusion and noise. But now, there was a choice before me, one that I could not ignore. The road ahead was clear, and I could see it before me, stretching far into the distance, lined with a kind of light I had never known. It was the light of truth. It was the light of freedom. And I knew that to walk in it, I would need to leave everything behind. No longer could I cling to the songs of the past, to the melodies that had led me astray. No longer could I let the world of secular noise drown out the voice that had called me from the depths. The life I had known was no longer mine to keep. It was time to walk a different path, a path that would lead me away from all that had held me captive. I remember the moment so clearly, the weight of it pressing down upon me, but there was no fear anymore, only a deep, unshakable certainty. I had seen the cost of staying in the dark, and I had seen the promise of what lay ahead. The choice was mine. "Do you want to be free?" he had asked me. The words had echoed through my soul, stirring something deep within. I knew then that freedom was not a gift that could be given from without. It was something I had to claim for myself. A gift that had always been there, waiting, but that I had to reach out and take. And so I chose to let go. I chose to break free from the chains of my own making. I chose to turn away from the lies I had believed, the songs I had sung, the darkness I had embraced. And as I made that choice, I felt something stir within me, something powerful and transformative. It was the breath of new life. You see, there are forces in this world that will try to keep you bound. They will tell you that the path of least resistance is the only one worth taking. They will convince you that the chains you wear are not chains at all, that the noise you hear is simply the sound of life. But it is not life. It is only a distraction. True peace, true freedom, lies in the choice to walk away from all of that, to step into the light that calls you, to choose the path that will lead you to healing, to redemption, and to something far greater than you could ever imagine. And as I stand here today, I can tell you with certainty, this is the path to peace. Not the peace the world promises, fleeting and false, but the peace that comes from knowing, without a shadow of a doubt, that you are walking in the truth. The peace that only comes when you make that choice, when you break free from the chains and walk into the light. The road ahead will not always be easy. There will be challenges. There will be moments when the darkness tries to pull you back. But remember this, you are not alone. The light is always with you, guiding you, protecting you, and leading you home. So I ask you now, as I once asked myself, will you choose to be free? Will you step into the light? Will you embrace the path that leads to true peace? The choice is yours. And when you make it, you will find that the peace you seek has been waiting for you all along.
Now that you've witnessed the power of this revelation, I urge you to take action. Leave a prayer in the comments. Let us know how you've been moved, how this revelation has touched your soul. Share your testimony. Share what God is doing in your life. Don't keep it to yourself. It's okay if you don't subscribe, but maybe you're not fully walking with Jesus yet. Maybe you haven't yet committed, haven't yet declared your love for him. If that's you, I want to challenge you. Don't let another moment pass by with making that choice. For those who are ready, for those who truly love Jesus, subscribe and let's walk this path together. You don't want to miss what's next. And remember, the choice to walk with him isn't just a decision. It's the most important decision of your life.